Okay, the third and final form that we are going to be working with when we're writing linear equations is standard form. So the standard form formula is as follows: ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are going to be some numbers. They're just going to be some numbers depending on what the line is. So there's three rules that we have to talk about, which you are going to need to remember. Number one, a and b cannot both be 0. That means both. One can be 0, but both of them cannot be 0. Number two, there should be no fractions or decimals allowed in your answer. It should be only integers. So you will see that we're going to have to manipulate some of these so that they don't have fractions or decimals. And the final rule is that a, which is your leading coefficient up here, a cannot be negative. And we're going to look at examples of how to change some of these things. Let's say you have a fraction, how to get rid of the fraction, how to get rid of a negative a, and how to get rid of decimals. Okay, so those are our rules. So let's look at a couple examples on how to do this. First example, y equals 2/3 x minus 5. So the first example, you will notice that we have a fraction that's involved. So we have to get rid of that fraction because it says the second rule is we can't have any fractions or decimals. So if we have y equals 2/3 x minus 5, you might remember from earlier in the year that we kind of worked with getting rid of these or getting common denominators. So what I'm going to do to get rid of that 3 is I'm going to multiply everything by 3. That means you're multiplying the y by 3, the 2/3 by 3, and the negative 5. And the reason I picked 3 is because this 3 and this 3 will cancel each other out. So that's why we picked 3. So now let's look. I'm going to start with my y. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 2/3, again, that cancels each other, the 3 and the 3, so I'm left with 2x. And then 3 times a negative 5 is a negative 15. So I got rid of the fraction. Now all I have to do is just move over my x term to make it look in standard form, right? It needs to be ax plus by equals c. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Negative 2x plus 3y is equal to negative 15. Are we done? Not quite. If you notice, the third rule says a cannot be negative, and we have a negative 2 here. So what are we going to do? How do we get rid of a negative? We're going to divide everything by a negative 1. So this negative and that becomes a 2x minus 3y equals 15. And that is your equation written in standard form, right? ax minus by equals 15. So for this case, our a is equal to 2, our b is equal to a negative 3, and our c is equal to 15. All right, let's look at another example. Example 2. Y equals 6/5 minus 5/2 x. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite it over here. Y equals 6/5 minus 5/2 x. So again, we have fractions, so we have to get rid of those fractions. So we're going to multiply. But for this case, we have to multiply by the least common factor of 5 and 2, and that happens to be 10. So we're going to multiply everything by 10. So I'm going to first multiply y by 10. That gives me 10y equals, here, when I multiply 6/5, let's do it over on the side, 6/5 times 10, this cancels, and this becomes a 2. So 6 times 2 gives me 12. So I'm 12 over here. Minus, now I have to multiply 5/2 by 10. Okay, so I have 5/2 times 10. This cancels and makes this a 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So remember, but I have this negative here, so this negative has to come down here, and then I have 25x. All right, now I have to move my x over, right? I need my variables on one side, and 12 needs to be on the other side. So I'm going to add 25x to both sides. And I'm left with 25x plus 10y equals 12. And that's the form I need to be in, right? My A is 25, my B is 10, and my C is 12. I have no fractions, I have no decimals, and my A is not negative, so we're good to go. All right, couple more examples. If we have, let's say we're given -3/4 and a slope of -4. So what we have to do first here is we have to put this in point slope first. We have to put this in point slope form first. So how are we going to do that? Well, we know what point slope is. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So now I'm going to fill in what I have. Y minus 4, right? I'm getting my x and y from over here, equals my slope is -4 times x. X minus a -3 would give me a +3. So now that I am in point slope form, I can simplify this and put this in standard form. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to distribute my 4 first. So I have y minus 4 equals -4x minus 12. I have to move my 4x to the other side. So I have 4x plus y minus 4 equals a -12. I'm almost there. I just got this 4 hanging out, so I have to move that over to the other side. So now I have 4x plus y, these cancel, equals -8. And this is the standard form. A is equal to 4, B is equal to 1, and my C is a -8. Again, we'll try another example like that. Where I have the point -5, -6, and I have a slope of 3. Let's come over here and we'll work it out again. Again, we're going to put it into point slope form, where I have, point slope form, x, y, and my slope. So y minus a -6 gives me +6 equals my slope is 3. x minus a negative 5 gives me a positive 5. Okay, so I just took my x and y and plugged it right in. Now I'm going to simplify. Distribute my 3. Then I have to move my 3 over. Still got this positive 6 that's hanging out, so I got to get rid of that. It begins to be a lot of steps when we get to this point. 15 minus 6 is 9. We have one problem now, right? We're almost there. We got it kind of looking like it's right, but we're breaking the third rule. We cannot have a negative a. So again, we have to divide everything by a negative 1. 3x minus y equals a negative 9. And that is standard form. Got 2 more examples for you. The next one, right, when we're writing these, we're looking at different scenarios. So what happens if they are giving you just 2 points, but I want to see it in standard form? What are you going to do? Well, it's very similar to the problems we just did. First, though, we have to find slope. So I'm going to go ahead. Slope is 7 equals 7 minus 4 over 5 minus 1, which equals 3/4. So we know that m is equal to 3/4. Now I'm going to pick a point, and I'm going to, just like we did in the previous example, in example number 4, I'm going to use m is 3/4, and I'm going to use the point 1, 4. I'm going to put it in point slope form, because that's what I have. I have a point and slope, and then I'm going to simplify it into standard form. So let's plug it in. Y minus 4 equals 3/4 times x minus 1. And now I'm going to, well, I have a problem. Well, I'll distribute first. Y minus 4 equals 3/4 x minus 3/4. But before I go any further, I'm going to get rid of that fraction. We can't have fractions, and I don't like continuing on having to add and subtract fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply everything by the denominator. In this case, both the denominators are 4, so I don't have to find the least common factor, or I just have to use the 4. So here I go. I'm going to multiply everything by 4. 4 times y is 4y. 4 times a negative 4 is negative 16. 4 times 3/4, it makes the 2 4s cancel. So all you're left with is 3x. And the same thing here. This 4 and this 4 cancel, and I'm left with a negative 3. So I'm close. I got to move over my 3x to the other side. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. I'm left with negative 3x plus 4y minus 16 equals a negative 3. So I got to move that 16 over to the other side. Negative 3x plus 4y equals 13. Am I done? Not quite yet, but I'm close. I have a negative a. I cannot have a negative a. So I got to go ahead and get rid of that. Divide everything by a negative 1. So 3x minus 4y equals a negative 13. That was a long one, but you just got to stick with the steps. You have different scenarios, and you have to use different steps to get there. All right, the final one I'm going to talk to you about is if we had a equation that has decimals. So we said we can't have fractions or decimals. So what if I have 1.1x minus 0.4y equals 0.39? How am I going to get rid of those decimals? Well, what I need to do is multiply everything by 100. If I go ahead and multiply everything by 100, it's going to get rid of the decimals. So if I multiply 1.1 by 100, I get 110x. 1.1, or sorry, 0.4 times 100 gives me negative 400. And then we have 0.39 times 100, and that'll give me 39. I made one mistake, hold on. When I did this, 110x minus, this should be 400y equals 39. And that was how you would get that to be in standard form. And again, our A would be 110, B is negative 400, and our C is 39. All right, I know this was a lot, so we'll definitely take some time and go over it in class. But for now, just bring your notes to class, and I will see you then.